The story begins with a man named Clay who used to be a member of a special forces unit in a secret organization known as the Beekeepers. This secret group operated under the United States government and dealt with cases that were too secretive for regular law enforcement after retiring from the Beekeepers. Clay decides to lead a peaceful life and becomes a beekeeper. He rents a garage from an elderly woman named Mrs. Parker where he lives. Mrs. Parker is a retired school teacher who lives alone and is now involved in a charity organization helping financially disadvantaged women and children. She is happy to have Clay as her tenant because he is always polite and kind. Clay, in turn, is grateful to Mrs. Parker for renting him the garage after finishing his work. Mrs. Parker invites Clay to have dinner with her while she's working on her laptop. She suddenly gets a virus notification, warning her that her hard drive is infected. The notification advises her to contact her to the headquarters of a criminal gang known for running phishing scams under the guise of an antivirus company. As Mrs. Parker makes the call, a team of hackers asks Mrs. Parker for her bank account information, promising compensation from their company without hesitation. Mrs. Parker shares her bank account details with Garnett and is surprised to receive $50,000 as compensation. However, Garnett later informs her that he was only authorized to send $500 and requests Mrs. Parker to return the excess money without thinking twice. Mrs. Parker accesses her bank account on the computer to return the money to Garnett as she enters her password to complete the transaction. All her money vanishes instantly. Sudden theft. Clay is occupied with harvesting honey and pouring it into a glass jar. He plans to give the honey as a gift to Mrs. Parker. However, upon arriving at her house, he senses something amiss and cautiously grabs a knife from the kitchen for protection. When Clay entered the living room, he was met with a shocking sight. Mrs. Parker had tragically passed away, and a pistol lay on the floor beside her at that very moment. An FBI agent named Fona arrived. Her weapon pointed on Clay. Verona believed that Clay had something to do with Mrs. Parker's death, who, to make matters even more complicated, happened to be her mother without hesitation. Fona called the local police, who swiftly arrived, conducted a thorough investigation at Mrs. Parker's house and took Clay to the police station for questioning, despite her profound grief over her mother's loss. Verona was determined to uncover the truth behind the tragedy, actively participating in the investigation herself. During the examination of the crime scene, Verona stumbled upon evidence that her mother had fallen victim to a criminal syndicate notorious for their phishing scams, resulting in the loss of all her mother's savings and the funds belonging to the charity organization. She managed to Verona's surprise. It became evident that her mother's death was not a homicide, with proof that Mrs. Parker had done the unthinkable. The police decided to release Clay the following day. As Clay returned home, Verona came to offer her heartfelt apologies for wrongly accusing him of Mrs. Parker's death. She shared with him the details of her mother's passing and reveals the existence of a criminal syndicate posing as an antivirus company which had deceived her mother and stolen her bank account funds. Verona disclosed that this elusive criminal organization had been a fugitive from the FBI for years, and so far they had managed to evade capture. Learning of this, Clay immediately contacted the Beekeepers and tasked them with tracking down the criminal syndicate. He was determined to seek justice for Mrs. Parker's tragic demise armed. With all the resources and information available to them, the Beekeepers swiftly obtained information about UDG, the fraudulent antivirus company, managed by Garnett, and passed it on to Clay. Shortly thereafter, Clay made his way to the UDG headquarters with 2 jerry cans filled with gasoline. He incapacitated the security personnel, and upon reaching the control room, he confronted the employees. Clay intentionally attacked one of them and demanded that they pledge never to exploit vulnerable individuals like Mrs. Parker for financial gain. He then ordered them to vacate the room and proceeded to drench all the computer equipment with gasoline, just as Garnett and his men arrived to confront Clay. He easily overpowered them. Clay rigged a bomb to detonate upon receiving a phone call and warned Garnett to flee if he valued his life moments. Later, a phone call came in, triggering a massive explosion that obliterated a significant portion of the building. Following the devastating explosion at the UDG building, Garnett quickly got in touch with his boss Danforth to relay the shocking incident. He explained that a man who identified himself as the Beekeeper had infiltrated their company, incapacitated their security personnel, and obliterated their headquarters. In response, Danforth ordered Garnett to hire some thugs and instructed them to eliminate Clay. Meanwhile, Verona, who had received news of the powerful explosion at the UDG headquarters, felt a sense of satisfaction. The next day, Garnett and his hired thugs managed to track Clay's whereabouts while he was tending to his bee farm as Clay left his farm. Garnett and his thugs destroyed the beehives and discreetly trailed him. It appeared that Clay was well aware of their pursuit and had prepared for a confrontation upon reaching his residence. Clay was attacked by Garnett and his gang, however, Clay adeptly defended himself, launching a counterattack that resulted in the death of the thugs. Clay intentionally spared Garnett managed to escape. At the same time, Verona, conducting an interrogation with a UDG employee, received news of a fire at her mother's. Residents alarmed, she rushed to Mrs. Parker's house and discovered that Clay's garage had been burned to ashes. To her surprise, she found an identification card from the UDG company among the belongings of one of the bodies recovered from the fire scene. This discovery led Verona to suspect that Clay was directly involved in all the incidents related to the UGG company. The midst of these events, Garnett, having escaped Clay's clutches, called Danforth to report the failure of the assassination plan and the loss of his fingers. Danforth's anger flared and he began questioning Clay's true identity as they conversed. Clay suddenly appeared and launched an attack on Garnett while he was still on the phone with Danforth. Clay then bound Garnett's body with a lashing belt, securing it to the front bumper of his car, which he set in motion. The car rapidly pulled Garnett's body into the water. The entire incident was overheard by Danforth, who remained on the phone line. Realizing this, Clay picked up Garnett's cell phone and chillingly informed Danforth of his impending arrival to settle the matter. Meanwhile, Fona and her partner Matt made concerted efforts to find information about Clay in the United States government's databases, but encountered only dead ends. Verona concluded that Clay might be someone who had undergone specialized training within a secretive government organization, a revelation that even the FBI was unaware of shortly after Verona received information about Garnett, a high-ranking member of UDG found drowned and tied to Clay's truck. Meanwhile, Danforth decided to meet with Wallace, a former head of the CIA, the newly inaugurated president of the United States, Jessica specifically. Involvement in a situation with someone claiming to be the Beekeeper. Wallace took immediate action. He contacted the current CIA director, Janet, to inquire about Clay. Janet informed him that Clay had retired from the Beekeepers without hesitation. Wallace instructed Janet to eliminate Clay following his orders. Janet contacted the Beekeepers and tasked one of their operatives, Anna, with assassinating Clay. Meanwhile, Clay was at a gas station refueling when he was suddenly ambushed by Anna, but Clay managed to evade the attack and overpower Anna. He then severed her fingers and set her on fire, causing the gas station to erupt in flames to prevent further casualties. The Beekeepers informed the CIA that they would remain neutral and not pursue Clay any further. Janet relayed this message to Wallace, indicating that both the CIA and the Beekeepers would stay out of the feud between Clay and Danforth. With this information, Wallace had no choice but to take matters into his own hands to eliminate Clay. He assembled a team of Special Forces members and disclosed the Beekeeper's existence to them. He portrayed Clay as a rogue agent, whose actions posed a significant threat to innocent civilians, thereby convincing the Special Forces that Clay needed to be eliminated the next day. Verona and Matt arrived at the charred gas station and discovered Anna's unidentifiable body. It seemed that Anna was part of a secret government organization, but Verona didn't know why she had been hunting Clay. Meanwhile, Clay used Anna's severed finger to infiltrate her residence and access her computer. He used the computer to track the signal from Garnett's phone, pinpointing Danforth's location at the 9 Points building. Armed with this knowledge, Clay gathered weapons and explosives from Anna's place and departed. Meanwhile, the Special Forces under Wallace's command, tasked with eliminating Clay, had already reached the 9 Points building. Outside, the FBI SWAT team was stationed, well aware that Clay would strike the building. Surprisingly, Wallace and his special forces allowed the employees inside the building to continue working as if nothing was amiss, much like you. Buying the building was part of a criminal syndicate involved in phishing scams. Before long, Clay arrived, catching the SWAT team off guard as they planned outside without wasting. Anytime, Clay launched an attack on the SWAT team, overpowering them with ease. After dealing with the SWAT team, Clay infiltrated the building and cleverly blended in with the NSU employees. However, one of the Special Forces members eventually recognized him and initiated an attack. Wallace's Special Forces swiftly joined in, launching an assault on Clay, but Clay skillfully evaded their attacks, taking them out one by one until none remained. Following this, Clay interrogated Rico, one of NSU's executives, pressing him to reveal the identity of the company's owner. Initially resistant, Rico shared that the company's owner wielded immense power, seemingly immune to the law in response. Clay asserted that nothing was beyond his reach and pledged to dismantle this ultimate power if it jeopardized innocent lives, fearing for his life. Rico reluctantly disclosed his boss's identity. However, at that moment, Fona and her team arrived, weapons drawn, aimed at Clay. Thankfully, Clay managed to escape. Meanwhile, Verona and her partner finally unraveled the truth that the owner of both the NSU and UDG companies engaged in phishing scams was Danforth, the son of the President of the United States. These companies fell under Danforth Enterprises, a firm owned by the Danforth family, which managed software used by various U.S. government agencies. Verona also emphasized that Clay might not only target Danforth, but could also pose a threat to the President of the United States, Jessica, who happened to be Danforth's mother. Upon learning this, Deputy Director pre-assigned Verona and Matt to apprehend Clay, while the SWAT team tightened security for the President and her family. The next day, Verona and her partner joined Secret Service agents to provide security for the U.S. President and her son, who were hosting a charity event at their beachfront mansion. Despite the heightened security with Secret Service and FBI personnel, Wallace remained worried about Danforth, led by Lazarus, who claimed to have taken down a beekeeper in the past, even though he had lost one of his legs in the process. On the other hand, Clay successfully infiltrated the Danforth family's estate by sneaking through a drainage channel and hiding under a truck. He incapacitated a SWAT team member and planted bombs on the vehicles before assuming a disguise. This allowed him to enter the mansion without raising suspicion, blending in with the charity event attendees. Meanwhile, PR met with the President and laid out all the details, including Danforth's use of software from Danforth Enterprises and the creation of multiple companies for phishing scams. Upon learning that their campaign funds came from ill-gotten gains, Jessica was furious. At the same time, Verona, realizing Clay's presence, ordered the SWAT team to capture him, sensing he was surrounded, and at gunpoint, Clay decided to kneel, but this was all part of his plan. He detonated all the Secret Service trucks as a diversion, quickly dispatching those who had cornered him, and charged into the mansion to confront Danforth inside the mansion. Jessica, upon discovering the extent of her son's wrongdoing, decided to expose Danforth's actions to Clay and the world, hoping for mercy simultaneously. Clay fought his way through the building, injuring Secret Service agents, but showing no mercy to the mercenaries hired by Wallace. Eventually, Clay reached the hallway leading to the President's office. He engaged in a brutal fight with Lazarus and emerged victorious, proceeding towards the President's office. However, when he tried to enter the room, Wallace confronted him, attempting to dissuade Clay from killing Danforth, disregarding Wallace's pleas. Clay instead broke his fingers in the President's office. Danforth, growing desperate as his mother prepared to unveil his crimes, took drastic action, grabbing a pistol and fatally shooting Pre. In the midst of it all, Clay planted an explosive device on the door, preparing to breach it as the door burst open. He rushed into the room, swiftly followed by Verona and other FBI agents. Danforth, caught off guard, panicked and took his own mother, Jessica, hostage. Verona attempted to convince Clay not to harm Jessica or her son, while Danforth, in his nervous state, considered harming his mother to escape justice in this tense moment. Clay turned to Verona and asked her whether she was working to enforce the law or to seek justice, witnessing Danforth's intent to harm his own mother. Clay made his choice. He shot and killed Danforth before swiftly escaping through a window. Verona had a clear shot for her mother and the other victims over strict adherence to the law. The film concluded with Clay managing to flee the mansion equipped with scuba gear he had hidden on the beach. Moral lesson from the movie Never Disturb. The beehives of a beekeeper lightly lest you face the consequences of having your